Welcome back. This video, we're going to look at defensive design. When you write code, you cannot trust the user. Users make mistakes. They type in wrong boxes, and sometimes malicious users will try to break your system on purpose. Defensive design is the practice of anticipating misuse. You've got to predict that they will make mistakes or purposely misuse the system. It means creating software that continues to function properly no matter what the user types in. There are two main methods you need to know for your exam: authentication and input validation. Let's start with authentication. This is very straightforward. Authentication is simply the process of verifying a user's identity before they're allowed to access a system or a piece of code. If you are asked for examples of authentication in the exam, you can mention requiring a username and password, or biometrics, fingerprints and face, or two-factor authentication, 2FA, where a message is sent to your phone, email, text message, or even using an authentication app. Once the user is inside the system, we use input validation. Yeah, so we've got usernames and password, they're inside. Then we need to do input validation. Input validation means checking that the data that they enter is reasonable and follows the rules before the code is allowed to process it. Massive trap in the exam is saying that validation checks if data is correct. It does not. If your name is John, but you type in Dave, validation will accept it because Dave is still a valid text. Validation only checks if the data breaks the rules. In older OCR exams, you had to learn a list of validation in for the free request. Under the new spec, the exam board cares more about whether you can actually code validation checks in paper 2. To give you the ultimate toolkit for the exam, we are going to look at 5 most common ways you need to check. You will need to check data. Let's jump straight into Python. Here we go. First is the range check, which ensures a number falls between a specific minimum and maximum. Let's write a simple if statement to check if a secondary school year group. So let's do year equals int input. We need to make sure it's integer because we're going to do some checks. Enter a year group, double close bracket because we've got 2 open brackets. If year is less than 7 or year is greater than 11, we're going to say print error must be between 7 and 11. And then we can check that. So we enter a number that is, let's say 5. We'll say error must be between 7 and 11. And else, if you do enter a valid number, we're just going to say access granted. Press play, and let's do a invalid first for the error, and let's do a valid one. Let's do 8, and it says access granted. So that's a simple if statement. It does the job. It checks if you type in invalid data and gives you a message, but then it just ends. If you enter invalid data 5, program stops and we're done. In a real exam algorithm, you will often be asked to trap the user until they enter a valid data, but we do this by upgrading our if statement into a while loop. So let's start with moving this down. We're going to say year equals 0. So this is invalid. And instead of, we'll do a while loop here. While year is less than 7 or year is greater than 11, we're going to keep on asking for the year group. So we don't need this at the moment. Let's run this, see what happens. Do Control Enter to run. We're going to type 5. That's invalid. Must be between 7. And it's going to ask you again. Now we're trapped in this loop. We can only exit if we enter a number between 7 or 11, or inclusive 7 and 11. So if we enter now a valid range 7, it exits the loop. We could also put a success message after we're dedenting it after the while loop. Now access granted. Do that again. We then enter invalid 4, must be between 7 and 11. Let's do 7, and it says access granted. By using a loop, the code refuses to continue until I type the correct age. If I type in a 99 years old, or if you're in year 9, sorry, 99, it doesn't accept it because it has to be between 7 and 11. It will keep on asking you to enter a number until you enter a valid year. And then once it's done, it exits the while loop. It's no longer true. It is not below 7 or it's not greater than 11. It will say access granted. Okay, so that was range check done. We've authenticated, someone's logged in. Now it asks us to enter a number between 7 and 11, and we've checked that range. Let's do presence check. Ensure data has actually been entered, not left blank. Let's go back into editor. Let's clear our old code. Let's do name equals input. Please enter a name. Now, if name equals blank, we can say print error can't be blank. Very easy. Run it. So I've made a mistake here. When we're doing comparison, it should always be 2 equals, not 1 equal. That becomes an assignment when we want to store a value. So we store a value from the input into the variable. We use 1 equal, which is an assignment. 2 equals means comparison. Is the name blank? Does it contain blank? Let's try that again. We enter nothing, and it says error can't be blank. If we do welcome name, press play. Let's do a name. Now it says welcome, and the name get used. We can also do plus to concatenate or combine it. Welcome. Come on. If we want to make sure it is in a loop, how do we do that? Again, we start with invalid, so we'll do name equals blank. Then we do while name equals blank, and we're going to indent all of this. We don't need else anymore. We're going to dedent welcome. So when it is no longer blank, line 2, there's a mistake. Again, 2 equals for the while. So if we enter blank, it's going to say can't enter blank, and then it's going to ask us to enter over and over again. So blank again, enter a name, error can't enter a blank. Now I type a name. It's no longer blank. It says print welcome and your name. Successfully done. That is a presence check. We've checked if it is blank. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is length check. Ensure data has the correct number of characters. This time we're going to use a password. So let's do password equals input, let's do password, min 8 chars. Just test it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. It accepts it. Well, now we're going to do an if statement. If password, we need to use the function len. Password is less than 8. Print password is too short. This, now we're checking if the password length is less than 8. Let's run it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Password is too short. And if they do enter a correct length password, we're going to do password success. So let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Too short. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now it's 8 characters long. Password success. So again, let's loop this now. So we'll start with a short password. Password equals empty. So that is 0 characters long. So we can do a while loop while len password is less than 8. And we're gonna indent all of this. Let's try that out. We've got a mistake in line 3. While password, we put a speech mark there by accident. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. It said password is too short. It's going to ask us to enter. So if password is, so we're going to try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is successful. We don't need the else there. We could just have that only appear outside the while loop. So we know it's exit to the while loop. Let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4 is incorrect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is correct, and it says password is success. Finally, we're going to look at format check again. This one, I've not seen any exam questions about it. I believe you just need to know what it does and what's it used for. We use format check to ensure data matches the required pattern, e.g. an email address. We all know an email address must include an @ symbol, for example. So let's do some coding with that. Let's go type in email equals input email. Let's run that, control enter. If I type in email, instead of @ I used hashtag gmail.com. That is not a valid email. We want to check if there's an @ symbol in the email. We can check for that. If @ symbol not in email, very simple. It's pretty much like type in English. Indent here, error, not a valid email. Else, right, email is saved, let's do email is correct. Let's have a go at that. Close bracket there, control enter. Let's do an email without an @ symbol, so abcde.com. It says error, not a valid email, but there's no @ symbol, and then this if statement checks if it's in the email. Let's do another one. Let's do one, a proper one. Email at gmail.com. Email is correct, so it's checking for a symbol, the @ symbol, checking if the right format. So that is a format check. Okay, so that covers defensive design. So anticipating misuse to keep program robust and secure so they don't crash. Authenticating users using usernames and passwords. Biometrics, fingerprints, Face ID. Two-factor authentication. Email through text, etc., etc. Then input files after they've been authenticated, they log in. Let's say they want to fill out some form. you need to memorize each of these types for your exam. So if they may ask you to explain two of these, or they may give you some code. Usually one of the could be presence checks, length check, or range check are the usual ones as code, and you've got to say which check it's doing, or they may ask you to fix some code or even make some code. Type check and format check, usually if they might ask you to explain, so you should memorize what they do. Practice doing the if statements for all of these and converting them into a while loop, so you could repeatedly ask them until it's correct. So that's the end of defensive design. Another input validation you should know about is type check, checking if something is an integer, not text, and making sure it gives you an error message. I've never seen an exam question with code for this, but you should be able to explain what a type check is. So the purpose of it is to make sure the right type of data has been entered, especially integer. That is the one we want to check. Let's do some code. So age equals input. Please enter your age. And usually we expect it to be a number. So if we do if age dot is digit, is a function we can use. Open bracket, close bracket, equals false. Print must be a integer or number, else print that's a correct age. Correct input. Let's give that a test. Control enter to run it. Let's put in 5, and it says must be a number, expecting a actual number to go in, not a string. So let's put in 5, and that's the correct input. So isdigit is a way of checking if a number is an integer and giving you a message if it is correct or else it's not correct. But the main thing you need to understand for this is type check ensures data is the correct data type, e.g. integer, not text. You should be able to explain that in your exam.